Hello there and welcome to Bryan Lomax Movie Talk and my review of Smallville Season 2. Just before we get into that, I would just like to say thank you to my new patrons, Mack Kelly, who is actually a long-time friend of mine. I used to share a flat with a guy, so yeah, that was really nice to see that pop up in my patronage. Thanks, Matt. And Evan Siran, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name there correctly, mate, but thank you for joining my patron community. If you would like to see what that's all about, then please hit the link below for my Patreon page. But Smallville Season 2. So I've already reviewed Season 1. This is one of my favourite TV shows. I get that there's a lot of stuff in it that is kind of eyebrow raising and a bit, like not the best kind of thing. But this, as I said before, there's something about this show that keeps me coming back for more, that I just love about it. It gives me the warm and fuzzies. What can I say? But Season 2, widely regarded, I think, by most fans as one of the best, if not the best seasons, and I can understand why. There is a lot of really great standalone episodes in this one, like Red and Heat being two primary examples. Red being the one where we first get introduced to Clark going on Red Kryptonite, which makes him become all emo bad boy kind of Clark. Takes away his inhibitions. It's an episode that has a lot of fun with that concept, Heat is when we first get introduced to Clark's heat vision powers, which are actually brought on by sexual arousal. Again, an amusing episode, but also just really solidly written and well played by everyone involved. There are three kind of main story arcs that go across this season, as is often the case, because we have our kind of trinity of main characters in Clark, Lex, and Lana. So I just want to delve into those a little bit. First and foremost, obviously Clark being the central figure of the show. The storyline kind of he gets caught up in is with the Koachi caves. So he falls into these caves, these ancient Indian caves, and there is a link to Krypton in there, and these cave paintings and various things that happen as a result of discovering these caves throughout the season, which brings him into contact with a character played by Christopher Reeve, in a really great episode called Rosetta, which gives us a look into where he comes from, where Clark comes from, his Kryptonian origins. So all that stuff I really like. I'm not overly sold on Skinwalker, which is the episode in which the caves are introduced. They try and put this romantic element in there with this character called Kyla, and it just feels very rushed because they, all within the space of one episode, they have to introduce this woman, make Clark fall in love with her, and grow so attached to her that he can't live without her, and then she dies at the end. And it's just like, it's such, when Clark can't even tell Lana how he feels, the love of his life, and we've had that as an ongoing thing certainly across the first season and into halfway through this season. It just becomes a bit too much of a stretch to buy the introduction of this character, the falling in love with her, and then the demise of her, and Clark's mourning of her. It's just like, she doesn't make a dent to me, and I just wish they'd have left that out. Just the whole the Indian connection as well. I can tolerate it. The Native American kind of connection with the caves and whatnot, and how Kryptonians obviously came to Earth in the past. But I just think that episode I'm not a big fan, which is a shame, because it is the episode that introduces an element in the show that will last for quite a long time and will have quite a huge impact in many episodes to come, many seasons to come. The main storyline that we get with Lex throughout this season, amongst others, obviously they all interweave with different things that are going on. But for Lex, the biggest thing is the introduction of this new character called Helen Bryce, who, yeah, he meets at an anger management class, and I like her as a character. I think they do a good job with her over the course of the season. An episode that kind of focuses around her is actually my favourite episode of the season, which is Precipice. It's quite a darker episode for Smallville, and it's really about violence, particularly violence towards women. And it's mostly about how you deal with the anger that comes out of that. You know, we get a look at different sides of violence towards women. You know, how Lex reacts towards his woman kind of being beaten up, how Lana reacts towards being the victim of a violent crime, and you know, and we see all these different these different reactions to it through anger and how they deal with that anger. And it's for me, thematically, it's really solid and it's a really good episode. And some people could argue that Clark doesn't necessarily behave in the best way, but Lana's the love of his life. You know, why wouldn't he want to duff up one of the guys that kind of attacked her? I get that. It's, you know, he's a teenager, he's going to have those emotions, and he's not always going to be perfect. This is about him learning to become the man that he eventually becomes. So for me, it's the best episode of the season, and as I say, it does focus a lot on the character of Helen Bryce. And yeah, I think for me, the twist at the end of the season that she is really a bad guy, a villain, a villainess. It kind of comes a little bit out of the blue for me, because like across the course of the season, we do see a couple of times how Lionel tries to buy her off, or that's certainly the way it appears, and she says no and whatnot. It's very hard to kind of pinpoint the precise moment she decided to go against Lex, and for me, I think it's probably when she leaves him. I think up until that point she is falling for him. I don't know, and then I don't know when she leaves and then she comes back. Maybe when she left, she thought about it and thought, well, I don't love this guy anymore. He's clearly, you know, there's something wrong with him, but I'm going to take him for all he's worth. I've had a few other fans suggest that she was that way from the beginning, that this was all her plan from the beginning to get in and kind of, screw him out of his money. But we see sides of her that kind of betray that notion, like when she protects Clark's secret. You know, she finds out about, you know, his powers through his blood. She has his blood, examines it, and she keeps that from Lex. You know, so she protects Clark in that way. So those two sides of her character are a bit contradictory. It just feels a bit, out of the blue at the end when she double crosses him. And I do find myself wondering at what point that decision was made. But either way, I think her arc across the season is quite a solid one. I like her as a character. I like the interaction between her and Lex, and I think it gives Lex, one, it gives him something to do, but two, it opens up his character a bit more as we see this softer side to him, as we see, you know, this side of someone who is willing to settle down, who's willing to make that choice to settle down with someone. And I think the fact that she does double cross him, the fact that she leaves him in the plane at the end to go down. Of course, we don't find that out till the beginning of season 3, but as a fan, you know, we know this at this point. I just think that also has ramifications, perhaps, for the way that he will go on to treat women in the future. I think it really dents him. I think at this point, you know, we look at Lex and his journey and how he becomes the man he becomes. I think Helen has quite a large part to play in that, his distrust of women, you know, because this is a point where actually he has opened up. He has shown her into his private rooms, you know, his research on Clark, things like that, his obsession So yeah, he's opened up, he's been willing to be truthful with her, and I think because of that betrayal, that will affect his trust of women in the future and characters in general. So I think, yeah, season 2 is a very good season for showing us how Lex, becomes the man that we know he's going to become. So finally, we've got the story arc of Lana, and her main story arc is finding her real father, which is rubbish. It has some moments, it has some, when you feel like it's going somewhere in the start of the season and the middle of the season, and you feel like, okay, they're actually doing something with Lana. They're giving her a story arc, an element of the season which allows her to interact with Chloe in certain ways and bring them closer together as they have similarities, and they talk about being adopted and this, that and the other, and yeah, just her finding her real father feels like they're doing something. But we get to the end of the season and it's like they didn't quite know where to go with it, so they cut their losses and ran, because yeah, Lana ends the relationship temporarily, just until he can get back on good terms with his wife, because he's having hard times with his wife because he's giving so much attention to Lana. And that little hiatus turns into, yeah, we never see this guy again. He's never mentioned again. It's like he just never existed, and it just renders all this stuff that Lana goes through with him in this season completely pointless. So yeah, of the 3 main characters, once again, Lana has the weakest story arc across the season. Kind of the one that ends up being pointless, really. This is the season in which Pete also finds out Clark's secret. That puts a bit of a burden on him, puts quite a lot of pressure on him. We see that in various places and moments across the season. It doesn't necessarily endear me towards Pete any more than I was in the first season. I still think that while he's written okay, Sam Jones III isn't exactly the best actor in the world. He's not a character that I hate. He's just there. Pete, yeah, he's just there. Like Chloe, I love Mack's performance. I love the character in general. I love the way she, just her feelings towards Clark and the way that kind of manifests in various things. But yeah, Pete, that's all I can say. He's just there. Sometimes he actually becomes a nuisance. He becomes a bit of a ball and chain, so to speak, to Clark. But other times he becomes that brother that Clark kind of needs, So yeah, he has his bonus points, but I'm not going to miss him when he goes. Another standout episode in this season is an episode called Lineage, and that's where we get to find out just exactly why Jonathan Kent has such a disdain for Lionel Luthor. And we see that Lionel Luthor actually is the one responsible for helping them kind of fake Clark's adoption. He's the one who sorted the papers and whatnot. So yeah, he has very close ties to them in that regard. And yeah, he obviously pulls dirty tricks having that information. So yeah, it's again, it's a great episode, and it does paint Lionel as, at this point, the best villain of the show. He's the recurring villain. He is essentially Lex Luthor, because Lex obviously isn't the man yet that we know he's going to become. So somebody has to fill that void, and that is Lionel. And yeah, what can I say? John Glover is brilliant whenever he's in the series. And yeah, Lineage is a cracking episode. And just across the season, all of his interactions with Lex are always a standout. Whenever those two are on screen together, I'm I'm enjoying myself. This is also the season in which Chloe kind of gets under the thumb of Lionel, and I do like that plot line. I love seeing the way that Lionel manipulates Chloe. He wants her to investigate Clark and find out everything that she can about him. So that stuff is really interesting. I like all the interactions there between Clark and Chloe when Clark finds out about this stuff and kind of feels a bit betrayed. But you really feel for Chloe as well. You feel a great deal of sympathy for her because you've seen the way that Lionel has manipulated her and kind of trapped her into this cycle of, doing things that perhaps she shouldn't do. Again, Allison, Mack and John Glover, whenever they're on screen together, always great stuff. And I always love the way that, Lionel will kind of antagonize her in some way. And then before leaving, he'll just say like, "Good day, Miss Sullivan." And it's just like, it's just, you kind of want to smack him every time he says it. But again, that's what you're meant to feel because this guy is a leech. Again, props to Glover, props to Mack. Great stuff. Another thing that this season kind of introduced, kicked off, so to speak, was returning Meteor Freaks, which I always loved and I wish they'd have done more of, because it would also keep the numbers down of just how many freaks there were out there. Because sometimes, as I said with season 1, sometimes it feels like nearly every kid in Smallville has got some kind of meteor power. So bringing back a meteor freak that has been in the series previously is a good way to get around that. So in the episode Visage, which is where we learn that Whitney Fordman is dead, has copped it. Yes, no bringing him back. That's a good episode. It's got this meteor freak who, Tina Greer, who can kind of change shape. It's a really solid episode, and just having her come back. She was in the first season. They bring her back here. It's just it plants that seed for having characters return who've been here before, and it's something that will happen multiple times across the series. But this was the first time. While we're on the subject of Meteor Freaks, actually for season 2, it is an element of the show that they dial down this season. There aren't as many Meteor Freaks across the board this season. There's more episodes that have more human villains. You think Insurgents, when a few people break into Luthor Corp, into Lionel's office and hold them hostage. It's more villains like that are just human beings driven to do things that they shouldn't really be doing. Or you think like Professor Walden, who kind of gets taken over by the ship, the Kryptonian element. But when it comes to actually meteor infected villains in this, they do dial it down a bit this season. One of the interesting ones we get is a villain in an episode called Dichotic, which is one of the kids from Home Improvement. Two actually. Two of the guys, the two older sons from Home Improvement, both appear in this season. I think his is quite cool, although maybe miscast. I don't know. I think he's quite cool. I prefer Tina Greer's appearance in this season than I did in the first season. I think she makes a more effective villain this time around. For the most part, they dial the Meteor Freaks down, and I'm kind of happy with that. I prefer the more human element. So season 2 overall is a really great season in this series. I think it's definitely an improvement on season 1. It builds on season 1. And it starts to introduce things that will play into, the show as a whole later down the line. They're really sowing seeds here, I think. Again, I think the Lana storyline is probably the weakest element. Mostly just because they drop it. It's like with Clark's stuff and with Lex's stuff, I feel like that's stuff that will have ramifications further down the line. It's stuff that will play into season 3 and onwards. Whereas, the stuff that Lana goes through with Henry Small, it's dropped at the end of the season. It's never mentioned again. it's pointless. So yeah, for me, that's kind of the weakest spot. And again, as I said with season 1, that's not Kristin Kreuk's fault. I think she delivers a pretty decent performance throughout most of the season. I just think the writing lets her down once again. But yeah, on the whole, as I say, one of the best seasons. Obviously, I've not gotten to the other seasons yet. It's been a while since I've seen them, but just from memory, I do think that this is probably one of the best. I've done what I did with the first season, which is where I've taken each episode, I've reviewed them, kind of given them a score, and then I've used all those scores to come up with an average. And the average that I give for season 2 is 4.25 out of 5. But there you go, that is my thoughts on season 2 of Smallville. I would like to know what you think. Just while I'm thinking about it, do head on over, if you are a fan of the show and you want to talk to other Smallville fans, there is a Smallville fans Facebook group that I'm a part of. It's a really cool group, lots of great people in there that just love talking Smallville. I have been reviewing each individual episode on there, actually, just as written reviews, been posting them up on there each day as I go through the series. So if you want to know some deeper thoughts from me about each episode, then yeah, go and join that group, go and say hello and go and tell them who brought you. But yeah, Smallville fans Facebook group, really great group. Couldn't recommend it enough. Other than that, I would like to know what your thoughts are on season 2, so do please post them down below in the comments section. Thank you for watching this video, and until next time, cracking.